All right, so whenever you have a charged particle just sitting in space, it produces electric field lines going away from it in all directions. Okay. Okay. So that's when it's sitting in and not moving. Now, something happens when it starts to move. Okay, so as this particle, this charged particle starts to move, we don't see electric field lines anymore. We see magnetic field lines that follow this rule where when it's moving to the right along the thumb direction, the magnetic field curls in the direction of the fingers. So it actually starts to circulate. So it starts to circulate this particle as it moves that way. Okay. Now, what happens if another charged particle that's moving by going the opposite way, right? The magnetic field lines would be in the opposite direction, right? Okay. And so since the orientation of these lines don't match these lines, right? Because these are going this way and these are going this way. What happens is there's a force felt between these particles and they will, so remember that's going this way, they will repel each other, right? So they will move away from each other. Now, if you have a charged particle that is moving in the same direction, the magnetic field lines are the same orientation. Okay, and what happens is they want to merge their magnetic field lines. So they come together. So they would actually be attracted to each other. And so what would happen is that only happens when they're moving, right? Because once they're stationary, then like charges repel. Okay, so now here's what I'm saying about the frequencies, right, with people. I think that our spiritual plane or something of that, something like that, right, is sort of like this analogy with magnetic field. So like with a friend, right, you're usually, let's say like you have this orientation of magnetic field and your friend has this orientation of magnetic field. You all will sort of naturally attract your magnetic field lines, which they're not actually magnetic field lines in the plane I'm talking about, but they're more like spiritual plane lines of some sort. So they will merge, right? And they will try to become a bigger, so when you add these together, it becomes a bigger circulating magnetic field. Okay, so now this is the most superficial layer. Then when you zoom in, right, when you zoom in on these, maybe there's some other orientation of a magnetic field, right? When your friendship gets deeper, right, you start to find out more truths about each other. And maybe this person's magnetic field line is oriented the same, right? When you start to go deeper. And then it makes this magnetic field line, this resulting magnetic field line, even stronger. And then when you zoom in even more, maybe there's an area where the magnetic field lines aren't really oriented the same way, but you can sort of compensate and maybe make some shifts to it to make them align. And then a friendship works out. So now with romantic relationships, I think it's something, it's this concept, but it just goes deeper. You keep zooming in and in even further. So like, for example, let's say here's the one person's superficial magnetic field line, right? And then you're like, oh, it's a match because we're in the same orientation. Whereas if someone had like an orientation like this, right, going the opposite direction and slanted, it's like, oh yeah, we're not compatible. But anyways, so you see this orientation, okay, and then you start to discover, so this is like maybe attraction level and just kind of basic commonalities. then maybe you get into like spiritual beliefs or something, and this person's next magnetic field line is oriented maybe like the other way or something, you know. And then this person's, maybe you find out theirs is oriented the same way, right? Okay. And then if you keep zooming in, maybe the magnetic field line is like this, and this person's is maybe sort of similar, but not quite oriented the same, right? But they're able to make some shifts, right? This person here can shift this one a little bit to where maybe it turns into something like this, and this one comes back, right? Shifts back towards the other side, so they both sort of match, right? So there's some identity compensation going on here to keep the compatibility, right? And then if you keep going deeper, maybe you run into something like magnetic field lines that are not compatible and can't really be compensated, right? Like maybe down at the fourth level, the fourth spiritual level, maybe I drew those the same, so they would still be attracted. So if you go even deeper, right? So we're zooming in now, and let's say the fifth orientation is maybe like this for this person, and maybe it's like this for the other person, and they just they can't compensate. They had to like flip 180 degrees, and so it's like there's an incompatibility. So something like this, right? Something major about an alignment, personality alignment, may occur as you get deeper and deeper and deeper. And so when this doesn't align, then these other four that were merging, right, get split apart. So there's more undoing of these magnetic field lines, which, remember, this isn't actually magnetism. We're talking about spiritual lines, but this is just an analogy. So, and then with friends, right, it's kind of more, it's like there's not as many ties. So splitting apart is not like the end of the world. Now, I think that these magnetic field spiritual lines, right, are maybe sometimes capable of being in superposition. So I think that the more open-minded you are and the less that your ego is, I think that, I got to change to another page. I think that maybe like your magnetic field lines are like the most superficial magnetic field line that I started with. It may be in all these different orientations at once, right? And maybe this person may have something like this, right? And you can sort of, these are all in superposition, and you can make it collapse. Because you have a deep, profound understanding and can see the orientations that make this person tick, right? And so then the next level, maybe this person's orientation is like this. And so this one here, if you're like super enlightened or something, there may be a superposition in here. And maybe there's a superposition magnetic field lines in here. So there's nothing that's actually existing. They're just in like different states, and you can sort of pick, you can pick and choose which ones. And then you can allow this person to sort of grow and reorient their lines in a way that's beneficial for them by just being present and letting them grow, right? And so as long as these orientations here aren't too extreme compared to what we're allowing in our superposition states, right? Because we're only allowing certain directions, orientations to occur, but we have like maybe 4 different orientations in the outermost part, and 4 in the next level, and so on, right? But there may be some compatibilities as you keep zooming in that we don't, our superposition of our field lines, just there's none to really compensate for this, or it's something we strongly disagree with. Then we can still allow room for growth and some reorientation of this line, since we have multiple field lines that are in different positions all at once. We can allow them time to manifest something or reorient this. And so I think that has something to do with the soul connection in relationship dynamics. And a more spiritually evolved person is going to have these field lines in multiple positions at once, and are able to do more things with it than these people who are more set in their ways and set in stone and rigid, right? These are more fluid people. And so I just thought that maybe these analogies may have some sort of truth in them when you're talking about like a spiritual plane that's analogous to sort of physics concepts.